It's confirmed Brandon Aiyuk is done for the 2024 season. Torn ACL, torn MCL, potentially more damage when they get in there to perform surgery on Brandon Aiyuk. What it means for Aiyuk, what it means for the San Francisco 49ers, what options do the Niners have to replace Brandon Aiyuk in the lineup, both already on the team and potentially on the trade market? All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Love our everydayers out there and appreciate all the new listeners jumping on and joining us this season on Locked On 49ers Daily. You don't want to miss an episode. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first ticket purchase. All right, Croc, it's official. This from Ian Rappaport. And we haven't had a chance as of this recording to hear Kyle Shanahan, what he says about it, but I assume it'll be more of the same and the hopefulness that Brandon Aiyuk will be back to start the 2025 season, but it's going to be a long road back. According to Ian Rappaport, Brandon Aiyuk does in fact have a torn ACL and a torn MCL per sources, and there may be other damage that we're probably going to have to wait and find out about once they get in and do the surgery, which means it's probably going to be a complete reconstruction of that knee, Croc, and potentially a meniscus involved as well in a really gruesome injury to Brandon Aiyuk's right knee. Done for the season, and hopefully, in the best case scenario, Croc, Brandon Aiyuk will be 100% ready to go to start the 2025 season, but that's not a guarantee. This is a really tough injury, and this is an injury where even if he does come back by week 1 in 2025, there might be more hurdles in him becoming actually 100% the Brandon Aiyuk that we already knew post-injury, even starting next season.
Yeah, you talk about hurdles, and I think the biggest hurdle is always the mental hurdle. All right, a lot of these guys, you get the surgery, they repair your ACL, MCL, and whatever else is going on, but trusting it again, trusting it at 100%. You go back a few years ago, and I remember Jimmy Garoppolo tearing his ACL against the Kansas City Chiefs, same team. All right, but when he came back, and we saw him in that first preseason game against the Denver Broncos, he was like he would throw the ball and he kind of got pushed and he's like trying to keep his leg out of harm's way, and he doesn't want that leg to get hit. He's trying to protect it. And that's when you could tell, like, this guy, he's still thinking about whatever's going on. And he said it took him a while throughout that season to kind of trust that knee again. So for Brandon Aiyuk, I mean, just the injury in itself, that's a really tough one. Especially with the way that it happened, making the play, dropped the bad ball earlier, comes back, makes a great catch while getting hit, but they take his knee out. I just think it's really unfortunate, especially for the way that the season has kind of started for him. Had one big splash game. I'm assuming he would want a better start, especially after getting paid the amount of money that he got, and for it to end short 7 games into the season. I think that's really unfortunate for Brandon Aiyuk.
I immediately go to the entire saga we went through this offseason with Brandon Aiyuk. And this is exactly why Brandon Aiyuk was not going to play a game for the 49ers and was holding out to get the contract, because this exact thing could happen. Can you imagine if Brandon Aiyuk decided to go play on his 5th-year option and then this sort of an injury happens during the season before he secures a long-term contract? So that's why you hold out. That's why any player holds out and doesn't want to go play, because this could happen any given game in the NFL.
And this is not an injury that happened because of maybe a lack of offseason, right? Maybe if it's hamstring and you continue to get these hamstring pulls and it derails your season, or you can still, this guy's just not in shape and he's getting hurt because of it, all these soft tissue injuries, that's understandable. This was just a direct shot to his leg, to his knee. And you saw the knee buckle in. So it doesn't even have anything to do with him missing offseason. But the fact that you brought that up, I think that is an amazing point. Yeah, We saw it happen with Dak Prescott with the Dallas Cowboys. They're like, oh, you're going to have to play on the franchise tag. A few games into the season, his whole ankle snapped and had like a compound fracture and is pointing an entirely different way. When people hold out to get more money, a lot of it, and again, I get it as fans. He's selfish. He's this, he's that. These guys' livelihoods are on the line every time they step out on that field. So if you have any type of ability to get some guarantees because of some things that may happen to you while playing this game of football, you got to do whatever you can to make sure you secure that. And I talked about some of my buddies that I coach high school football with. Desmond Bishop, 9-year NFL pro. Bill Hawkins, 7-year NFL pro. These are guys that were retired from the game of football before their 30s. Like, they're done, right? So, yeah, did great, made some money, etc. And Aiyuk, he was making more money than those guys made in their careers. But just the fact that you don't know how long this game of football is going to be good to you. You don't know how long it's going to last, and you don't know how long you can be your best. So these are certain things like what that happen like this that you kind of want to protect yourself from and the business of yourself to make sure that in the event that something like this does happen, you are taken care of. So I'm glad he went about it the way he did and didn't go out there and play on that 5th-year option, because if he did, he'd be losing out on a lot of money. And again, there's some people that may say, well, now he can't help the 49ers. Well, he got hurt trying to help the 49ers.
You could definitely point to maybe his play this year not being what 49ers fans and maybe the 49ers would have hoped. He hasn't put up big numbers so far this season. And you may point to that as something that is, a correlation with him holding out, not having all of the spring and the summer practicing and building a rapport with his quarterback and being in the office and practicing. And so having a slow start to the season, you could point to that. But obviously the injury, like you said, Croc, that has zero to do with him holding out. And that is just the ligaments in the leg not being able to hold up to getting crushed by another large man that is that did damage to that. So unfortunate for Brandon Aiyuk. His season is done. He'll still have ample opportunity to earn that contract, a 4-year, $120 million extension. And remember, that was kind of tied into the $14 million 5th-year option that he already had. The Niners knocked that cap number all the way down to $5 million in 2024. So not only does he still have the $120 million to go in his contract, but he has a lot of the 5th-year option. Like the 2024 contract he already had has also partially been pushed into the future as well. So there's still 129 million of his 134 total in salary that is still on the books to come in 2025 through 2030, and 29 and 2030 are void years. So this contract the extension was 2025 through 2028 were the 4 years that he's actually under contract to play for the 49ers. But they moved some money around with the void years and pushed some of this money from 2024 into future years as well. So, even more than the $120 million is still on the books for the 49ers going forward for Brandon Aiyuk. And the cap numbers remain low next year as well, and really start to balloon as far as base salary in 2027 and 2028. And so if a fan's out there thinking, okay, well, what if Brandon Aiyuk is broken and he never is the player that that the 49ers hope they would be, really the first opportunity the 49ers would have to get out from under this contract, if they wanted to do that in sort of a trade or a cut situation, would probably be post June 1st in 2026. So I know I was going to get asked that question, so I just wanted to throw that out there. But right now is not the time to think about that. Right now is the time to wish Brandon Aiyuk well. Hope he does recover fully, and he's the same guy he always was, showing up in week 1 of 2025, and we'll find out more from Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, and we'll know more post-surgery about what exactly the damage is inside his knee, if it's more than just ACL and MCL, which is already pretty extensive. If there's meniscus involved as well in this injury, and what the exact time frame and recovery is expected to be for Brandon Aiyuk, but certainly at the earliest to start the 2025 season. So long road back, and wish Brandon Aiyuk well in that recovery. We got to talk, Croc, about the current San Francisco 49ers now in 2024. What are the internal options? Who's going to pick up the slack of an injured Brandon Aiyuk in the 49ers offense the rest of the way. And the trade deadline is in just a couple of weeks, Croc. And who's out there on the trade market that could potentially help if we don't like those internal options? So we will cover all of that next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. NFL fans can start big right now on FanDuel. Get a huge return because you can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet for new customers at FanDuel. And by the way, when you are watching the next San Francisco 49ers game, maybe you're watching Monday Night Football and you're in the middle of the game, and you can check all the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the very same page where you place your bets at FanDuel.com. So download the app or go to FanDuel.com, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet, where you can bet on the San Francisco 49ers to win the Super Bowl. You can bet on all the weekly lines for the 49ers, by the way, opening 5.5 favorites against the Dallas Cowboys in week number 8. And of course, every sport out there, World Series, you name it, you can find it and get in on that action at FanDuel. Just go to FanDuel.com. The next segment of this episode of Locked On 49ers is sponsored by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn just isn't a job board either. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have all the time and resources. So they're constantly finding ways to make the process easier and quicker. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So Croc, Brandon Aiyuk officially out for the year. Looking ahead, I think there's some young players. Obviously, the San Francisco 49ers drafted 2 rookies, and they're in the plans long-term for the 49ers. Are they enough to reinforce this football team and replace Brandon Aiyuk? Let's look at the internal options for the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, Deebo Samuel is still on the roster, and you have Juwan Jennings. Those will be the de facto 1 and 2 going the rest of the way, I assume, if you look at targets. But then when you consider when they're in 3 wides and who's the X, who's the Y, who's playing the F, could we see potentially, Deebo in the wide back and another wide receiver in with Juwan Jennings, or Juwan Jennings maybe not on the field, another wide receiver in there because they want a different element because look, Brandon Aiyuk was the X wide receiver in this offense. And I think his true backup was actually Chris Connolly. So does Chris Connolly just jump in and become the starter for Brandon Aiyuk? Deebo Samuel, Juwan Jennings, Chris Connolly, those are the veteran options. Ricky Pearsall, 1st-round draft pick. Jacob Cowing, 4th-round draft pick. Congratulations to both those guys getting their first receptions, but they both just came off a game where they got their literal first NFL receptions. And now you say, okay, good. Now go replace a guy who's played at a Pro Bowl level for this football team. And so that sounds like a lot to ask for someone who just got their first reception yesterday for this football team. And of course, Ronnie Bell, a lot of people would like it better if he was not on the roster, but this helps his standing on the roster now. And they might add another piece. Looking at the practice squad, the 49ers do not have, they still have Tariq Owens, it looked like, on the practice squad, and Trent Taylor on the practice squad could potentially get called up. They had Terrace Marshall, Croc, if you're thinking about a traditional sort of an X-style wide receiver that maybe they could bring back to the practice squad unless he got snapped up. I haven't seen around the NFL. Potentially bring him up to the roster. So as far as internal options, we'll talk about trade options. As far as internal options, how do you think this wide receiver group shakes out without Brandon Aiyuk the rest of the year?
Oh, I think it's extremely difficult. And also right now, I'm looking up Terrace Marshall. I don't think he's on the NFL team. He's a free agent right now.
Okay.
So the 49ers, for whatever reason, they let him go to keep guys like Trent Taylor.
It was last week when they released him I think it was before the Kansas City Chiefs game. Within the week that they released him to make room for somebody else. So either they didn't like what they saw from him in practice, or they just needed a body somewhere else. And they had numbers at wide receiver, didn't need another wide receiver. I would really like to see what he gives the 49ers, but yeah, he wouldn't be the first man up to replace Brandon Aiyuk. Who do you think that will be?
The toughest thing about this injury, and there's never anything good about injuries for the most part, right, guys? We'll see what happens with Brandon Aiyuk. But if you were to say, hey, at some point this year, you will lose Brandon Aiyuk, when do you want to lose him? I'd say, hey, just have it happen at the start of the season, because then you can kind of pull the whole 2019 thing where you have a lot of young receivers. You want to give them a chance, who's going to step into what roles. And then you really get a true assessment of where you're at with the group and how to add to that group, right? How to improve. It was very clear in 2019 with Marquise Goodwin, young Kendrick Bourne, young Deebo Samuel. You know what? They need a legit veteran around there that understands how to play at a high level and can put these guys under their wing. So they went and they got Emmanuel Sanders. And I thought that was a terrific trade for when they got it. But again, they had weeks, like over a month, almost 2 months worth of being able to watch that group to know what kind of guy they need to go out and get. And I think right now, you've had to play a little time without Deebo Samuel, and he's kind of in and out because he's sick. And then now you lose Brandon Aiyuk, and you're kind of thrusted. The young guys are kind of thrusted in this role of having to try to keep this team afloat right now. Like, you are 3-4. This is not an ideal situation or position for the 49ers to be in. And it's definitely not an ideal situation to try to test the waters and see what you have with some young guys. Again, go back to 2019. They were 7-0 or 6-0, about to be 7-0, beating the Carolina Panthers when they traded for Emmanuel Sanders, right? So now, not only do you have to make a move out of desperation, but you have to do something, because the way that Kyle Shanahan wants guys to play, he wants you to be ready. He doesn't trust young guys. I don't know how well this is going to go over, especially in this offense. It's not one of those, hey, we're just going to spread the ball, spread the receivers out, and we're just going to throw the ball around. And you got these kind of, easier route concepts and things are out and wide open. No, Kyle, everything has to be pinpoint accurate. I mean, if you're supposed to make this end cut at 9 yards, you better make it at 9, not 8, not 10. And if I can't trust you to get it at 9, I don't want to play you. So that's what these young guys are kind of dealing with, and being thrusted in a situation where a team that had such high expectations, all of a sudden, you're going to have to carry the load. I don't know if these young guys are up for that challenge. And they've got a lot of production out of younger guys so far this year. I think a lot of guys have done very well. But to the extent of needing to carry the offense, either Christian McCaffrey needs to get his ass back there on the field, or those young dudes, I don't know, they might be in a little trouble.
I mean, a perfect example of that was 2 plays in the last game. Was the interception that was intended for Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell's running an out. Brock Purdy throws a corner. Was that on Ronnie Bell not running the right route? Was that on Brock Purdy? I don't know if you've still gotten the answer to that one.
We got the answer.
What was the answer?
Kyle Shanahan, they asked did Ronnie Bell run the wrong route, and Kyle Shanahan said, nah, it was just a bad ball by Brock Purdy.
Okay. So
I think that's like his exact quote.
And because what's funny is the way it looked like Ronnie Bell was in the right place, because he went away from where the DB was, and Brock Purdy threw it to where the DB was, right? So that does add up. Even though I had my doubts, just because
I think we all did.
Ronnie Bell, yeah. we there's a lot of doubt surrounding Ronnie Bell right now. So I don't think that's going to be anybody's first choice to replace Brandon Aiyuk, and I would assume it's not Kyle Shanahan's first choice to replace Brandon Aiyuk either. But good on Ronnie Bell for running the right route on that one, and bad on Brock Purdy, because that was ugly. But then there's the 2-point conversion. Ricky Pearsall, right? He's running the quick little out route. He's not even looking for the ball when Brock Purdy throws it. So they were the offense was off. Even when the wide receiver was right, the quarterback wasn't right. So there's something off there, and Kyle Shanahan probably doesn't want to see that happen very much. So I would assume he will try to lean to the veterans as much as possible in Juwan Jennings and Deebo Samuel. Is Jennings a perfect fit to kind of jump in and play the X receiver in the 49ers offense? I don't think so. And to me, I think the simple answer is the first round pick in Ricky Pearsall. He led the 49ers with 46 snaps at wide receiver yesterday. And so we've kind of already seen it. And that was without the plan of having Aiyuk out the whole game. And as long as Ricky Pearsall can get off the line of scrimmage, which would be the thing I would worry about, physical press coverage, then he'll be fine because he's quick and he's slick and he can get open. And I think he'll be okay. Can they trust him to be in the right spot? Can he get off the line of scrimmage? But let's just say, Croc, that the 49ers traded Brandon Aiyuk the day before the draft, then drafted a first-round wide receiver. The conversation would be like, well, there's your replacement. They drafted a first-round receiver, and he replaced Brandon Aiyuk. Done. Well, we're there right now. But the answer feels different.
Well, the answer feels different because the guy that you potentially drafted to replace him missed OTAs because of shoulder, missed a lot of training camp because of a shoulder, then gets shot in the chest, and then now he's making his first NFL catch. I mean, when we say first NFL catch, like at least Jacob Cowing, well, he made catches in the preseason.
Yeah.
Like this is Ricky Pearsall's legit first NFL catch in any type of live action.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we barely saw him make any catches during live action in practice, during training camp. He made like a couple grabs. Then it's up, blue shirt. Don't touch him. He's hurt. So, I think that's why there's a lot more questions and concerns surrounding Ricky Pearsall. A lot of the adversities he's had to fight through, but also just how things led up even prior to the gunshot wound. I mean, how confident were you with Ricky Pearsall playing week 1 prior to hearing the news about him, being shot? I would say we weren't very confident with whatever we thought we were going to get out of him week 1, or if he was going to play at all. So this is going back pretty far, some of the things that he's had to deal with. And now he's thrusted into the fire, and the Flames are fuming right now because the 49ers are 3-4 in a spot where nobody expected this.
There are actually a ton of external options, Croc. If you don't like the internal options, if Kyle Shanahan says we've got to go to the trade market and John Lynch hits the phones hard, there's options with late round picks. There's options with, I think, big time additions potentially for the 49ers. Let's get into those names next. Check into the trade deadline market at wide receiver for the 49ers. The final segment of this episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app. In fact, you know what? This is why you should download Game Time. This is what it's made for. And I went through this last week. One of my favorite bands of all time was in town, a band called Sunny Day Real Estate. If you know, you know. I've had tickets since like January for this one show that was on a Tuesday night. And then that show sold out. So they added a second night on a Wednesday. And it was so good on Tuesday. I was like, you know what? I've got just the app for this. I went on to Game Time and I found some tickets for the Wednesday show that were half price. And I said, my wife went with me on Tuesday with some other friends. And I said, you know what? I'm going to go solo. Wife, you got the kid, everything cool. I'm gonna go back and see it again. It was so good. So nice. Saw him twice. And I got half off the ticket price on Game Time on a last minute ticket, and went on Wednesday and had a good old time rolling solo. And Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, all of it even easier, because Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on seats. So you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets, which you might if you're, say, trying to go to a San Francisco 49ers game and go to a stadium that holds 60,000 people. You can imagine how many tickets you might be able to find there and get some fantastic last minute deals of your own. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Okay. So I think the Cowboys game is going to be fun, Croc, because we're going to see this is a 1 week trial for everybody. All the names we just mentioned, right? If Juwan Jennings does what he did in week 3 against the Rams, 10 balls for 150 or whatever it is, a couple touchdowns, be like, oh, we got this. You don't have to go trading draft picks for a wide receiver. What if Ricky Pearsall goes crazy? And look, he was on the field for 46 snaps. What if all of a sudden, instead of 3 catches on 5 targets or whatever it was for 21 yards, he gets 11 targets and catches 8 balls and a touchdown and looks really good? Then you say to yourself, you don't have to do anything during this bye week after the Cowboys game, because you feel pretty good about a developing first-round wide receiver. You would expect to be able to fill some shoes as a starter at some point in his rookie season, even with all the time he missed. And that would make you feel a lot better about that. Jacob Cowing maybe shows up. He had the big one, and it probably should have been a touchdown if it's a better ball from Brock Purdy in the last game. Maybe he shows up and is a big play option that the 49ers have already been missing, and shows up big in the absence of Brandon Aiyuk. Chris Connolly is a player I really like. Maybe he shows up as like, look, I'm a veteran. Brandon Aiyuk's not getting the most targets on this team anyway, and I can fill these shoes as the rookies get ready. So I think it'll be fun to see how that shakes out, how those receivers are deployed for the 49ers against the Cowboys in week 8. And if the Niners win that game and are at 4-4 and you're going to be within a game of the Seattle Seahawks, you might then say, okay, I think we're okay. We don't have to make a move now. Or maybe you make a more minor move. But there's a lot of moves to potentially be had for the 49ers if John Lynch hits the phones. And I'm sure he's already starting to hit the phones and just checking in on who potentially might be available. And I'm going to start with a name that I think won't cost a lot, Croc. And he's an interesting name to me even more now that we've learned that it's an ACL, MCL.
Davante Adams.
Well,
no,
yeah.
I was assuming he might want to get traded again after what looked like with the Jets the other night.
All he had to do was wait 1 week and say, you know what? I'm going to go to the other team, the Steelers, instead of the Jets, right? The 2-5 Jets, they're going nowhere right now. And you're not going to hitch your wagon to the Jets because Aaron Rodgers is going to be there long-term for you anyways if you're Davante Adams. So maybe that's part of it with Davante Adams. He's like, hey, look, guys, as long as you agree to potentially trade me again if I ask for it before the deadline, because otherwise I don't know why Davante Adams didn't say, you know what, I'm cool. I'm going to wait another week before I say, yeah, that's the team I want to go to right now. So,
real quick.
Yeah.
The Pittsburgh Steelers, you just mentioned them. I watched them last night. Passing game looks different with Russell Wilson back there, a little bit more traditional as opposed to what they had with Justin Fields. But I like how you kind of threw his name out there, Davante Adams, because they do feel like they are a legit like receiver separator, short of really kind of taking that next step at receiver. George Pickens, he's just kind of like this 50-50 monster. So they're throwing the ball up. He's making these miraculous catches, but I don't know if they have that consistent receiver. And Davante Adams definitely would have complemented Pickens well with Russell Wilson at quarterback. But
yeah, no doubt. That's why they were interested in Brandon Aiyuk as well. They need that other guy. And they've been in on so many receivers, but haven't made a move. So I think they're trying to get a bargain basement deal done. And the name I'm going to bring up, and I wasn't bringing up Davante Adams, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if Davante Adams was like, "Oh yeah, this is not what I wanted either." So let's get it going. And the Jets realize, "Oh yeah, we're out of this anyways." Lose a couple more games and flip him. That's totally a possibility. So keep that in mind. I don't think that's insane with the way the NFL is going these days. But unless the Raiders are like, no, you can't trade him. We'll trade him to you as long as you don't trade him to like these 3 teams. And I think the 49ers might be on that list. It should be easier for the Niners to get him off the Jets than it was the Raiders anyway. So,
right.
When it comes to the torn ACL, MCL, and who knows, potentially meniscus with Brandon Aiyuk, Mike Williams of the Jets now is absolutely on the trade market. And he is coming off that same injury last year to his left knee instead of his right knee. And he was sort of slow played into the season because of and he had an extra month. So he had the ACL, MCL, meniscus last September. So he had a month longer than Aiyuk will to get ready for the season. And he was kind of, not ready throughout the offseason, but was ready enough to where they thought he'd be ready to go. And he was ready to go to start the season, but was a player that was like, we're going to slow play him into the season. And hasn't looked great, might not look like the same guy. But if you're talking about a player you could get for cheap, who's an ex wide receiver and could also be someone that could really help Brandon Aiyuk through this process because he just went through the same injury, I think Mike Williams is a fascinating name because he should be like a let's swap 6th and 7th round picks type of a trade and shouldn't cost hardly anything in draft picks for the 49ers to get, and is a true X wide receiver, maybe not the type of wide receiver that Kyle Shanahan loves, but I think that would be a potential really good fit for cheap. So I'm going to throw his name out there as the most likely, just because I think he's one of the more likely players to get traded, and ticks a weird extra box now because he has just recovered from the same injury and could potentially help Brandon Aiyuk, who's going to be around at the facility with how that recovery process is going to go.
One interesting thing watching Mike Williams, former top 10 pick out of Clemson, you know, I think the ACL kind of slowed him down a little bit. If you watched him with the San Diego Chargers or Los Angeles Chargers, he was a big play yards per catch type guy, but a lot of it was more 50-50 balls, and he was terrific at catching those. And then now you watch him with the Jets, he's even lost a step where he wasn't a big separator then. He reminds me a lot of Juwan Jennings now. And I would say I would actually favor Juwan Jennings if you told me I had to pick between the two guys. So,
Quicker and
knowing that,
better getting open.
do I want a Juwan Jennings clone that maybe doesn't give you the same type of yards after catch, that maybe doesn't give me the same type of physicality in the run game? So for those reasons, because I have to question it, and I doubt that it's what we're getting from Juwan Jennings, I'm out. I'm out on Mike Williams.
And all those reasons are why he would be super cheap too.
Yeah.
All right. So you don't like Mike Williams. Well, how about this? According to reports, Cooper Kupp might be available, which is unfortunate because he's definitely not going to the San Francisco 49ers from the Los Angeles Rams. So that would be interesting, but you can cross him off the list. He's not like the ex wide receiver type. Hey, maybe that's your fit with the Pittsburgh Steelers there. A target hog player that can catch the ball over the middle and go well with someone like George Pickens. Looking at the list of players,
real quick, I do like the Cooper Kupp idea. I actually think he fits with what the 49ers are, which they have a bunch of Z receivers, and then they just happen to make one of them an X. All right, but I would definitely love that. But like you said, I mean, chances slim to none, because I doubt that the Rams and Les Snead are like, yeah, let's trade Cooper Kupp to the 49ers so he can make them better. Beat us the next time that they play each other. Go to the postseason. Maybe we play each other for a third time and watch him hoist the Lombardi with the San Francisco 49ers. Absolutely not. There's no way they let that happen.
All right, let's run through some more trade candidates here. Here's a true X receiver. If the Bengals lose a couple more games before the trade deadline, what about T. Higgins as a true rental? Because you're not going to be signing him to a long-term deal after the season.
I like that. That gives them something. Okay, now here's the thing. I don't know. Let's say at the end of the season, if you tag him again, but a team wants to, are you able to put like that first round grade tender on him? Or
there's some rules with the tag, and for some reason I think, and I don't know this for sure, we'll have to look this up. I think you can't tag someone that you trade for during the season.
Well, but I'm saying as far as them, right? Like, is it worth, or what would you have to give up? Yeah, what would you have to give up to get him? Would you say, all right, 49ers, you want T. Higgins, it's going to cost you a first round pick, even though you have no intentions on signing him at the end of the year? You're not going to extend T. Higgins because you're going to get Aiyuk back. You still got Deebo. You got Ricky Pearsall, right? You got Juwan Jennings, who you extended. So you got all these receivers, but yeah, you need a half-year rental. Are you going to do it with a guy where, hey, his price is a first round? Because if we keep him and then let him, and we tag him in the offseason, and maybe there's like a tag and trade, they'll likely get a first round in return, a first round pick in return for him, or at the very least second. So what would the 49ers be willing to give up?
I think
would it be something similar like the Amari Cooper deal? Would it be something similar like the Devontae Adams, which was a third round, but potentially could be a second round pick? Is that worth it? And I would say that's worth it at this point. Which what's at stake? Trying to, salvage this season and potentially, make a run for a Super Bowl again. And we've seen the 49ers in this situation. They're 3-4. We've seen them at 3-5 and still make it to the conference championship game. So I would say if you're able to get him for a third round pick that potentially can turn into a second, which if you're the 49ers is likely going to be a late second round pick, I'd pull the trigger on T. Higgins.
Interesting. And that could be for only 9 or 10 games. I think probably for the 49ers, they'd be looking at something similar to what we saw last year with Chase Young in a third round pick, and hopefully get something back as a comp pick. situation. But I think it's unrealistic. So T. Higgins, I think I would cross off the list. I think it's pretty unrealistic that they'd be even willing to trade him or that the 49ers would pony up what it would cost to get him. And I think some other teams would spend more because they would have the idea that they're going to try to sign him after the season anyway. Okay, how about these names? Darius Slayton, Kendrick Bourne, Adam Thielen. You like those better than the internal options?
Give me Kendrick Bourne.
Wow.
Hey, and for some of the reasons that you said with Mike Williams, right? Like Kendrick Bourne, he's coming off a bad injury from this past season, but a guy that understands Kyle Shanahan, knows how to work, loves the game. He's going to give you 100% everything he's got. He's going to block. He may have a drop here and there, and I saw him drop one over the middle yesterday watching the Patriots game. But Kendrick Bourne, that's a guy that I would welcome with open arms. How much does he move the needle? Not sure, but it allows guys like Ricky Pearsall to not be super excluded from the game plan, be able to get to grow. It allows guys like Juwan Jennings to continue doing his thing. And it just kind of gives you a security blanket with a piece, for, just a receiver that you're familiar with and that you like. So, it probably wouldn't cost you much. That's a trade that I definitely would be willing to make.
I could see Kyle Shanahan liking the Kendrick Bourne option. I personally would take the Mike Williams option, but that's just me. I think both of those guys would be cheap on the trade market. They do come with some salary, though, as well, that you'd have to figure out. Some better names, though, potentially, that would also cost more, though, Croc. How about these four names that I think are, if you're looking for someone who's clearly going to be better potentially than the guys that are on your roster, and it depends on what you think that you can get from someone like Ricky Pearsall the rest of the way. Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, Jacoby Myers, and Deontay Johnson.
Jacoby Myers and Christian Kirk, very interesting. I think Christian Kirk 100% fits the bill that the 49ers are looking for as a receiver, and he's kind of, as a guy who has him on this fantasy team, I've seen him kind of, the targets are going way down from last year, not getting the same type of action. Jacksonville, not doing well, could be a fire sale type situation. Potentially could get him. And who was the other guy that I liked?
There was, hold on, let me go back to
I like Kirk.
I like Kirk, Jacoby Myers, and then we have DeAndre Hopkins and Deontay Johnson.
And I like Jacoby Myers. And I watched a lot of him with the Raiders, and watching him compliment Devontae Adams. The quarterback situation has been disastrous with the Las Vegas Raiders. I think coming over to the 49ers and some of the things that he brings, he's bigger than I initially thought. Like, he plays big. He's a good route runner. And those guys that come from the New England Patriots organization, they know how to work. And I think Kyle Shanahan is all about that. So Christian Kirk, Jacoby Myers, they might be two of my favorite names that you've listed.
That's interesting, Croc. We disagree completely. So from the tier of difference makers, I like Deontay Johnson, the true separator that Kyle Shanahan would love, and DeAndre Hopkins, obviously the ball catch point monster. Just because I like him a little bit better on the outside than Kirk and Jacoby Myers, who are more slot guys, and the 49ers just have a lot of that already on the roster. And I like Mike Williams more than Kendrick Bourne from the cheapest tier. And I think the other, Cup and T. Higgins and some of the other names are probably, pipe dreams and not realistic to even consider. So there you go. Plenty of options in a lot of different tiers and probably a lot of different draft pick variables that would be going the other way. So the 49ers have options. They have a couple weeks to figure this out. And I think an audition for especially the rookies, Jacob Cowing, Ricky Pearsall. They're clearly talented. The 49ers liked them. Can they be relied upon? Will Kyle Shanahan trust them to fill the gap that is vacated by Brandon Aiyuk, who is now lost for the rest of the 2024 season? All right, more on Aiyuk, more details on the San Francisco 49ers. We'll get ready for Cowboys week. We got Winky Wednesday. The Niners are bringing in punters to look at potentially. Mitch Wishnowsky looking over his shoulder now. All that and more coming up this week on Locked On 49ers. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts.